But yeah, let's talk about this Adesanya thing now that we have people in here. Let's talk about the Adesanya thing. Why is Adesanya a better striker than Whitaker? Adesanya won the first fight. The second fight was a draw. I actually think the second fight was a win for Robert Whitaker. It was close. I think that when it comes to just the 1v1, Adesanya has the better of the two fights. But let me just explain why Adesanya is not a top 15 striker. If this was 2020, Adesanya would definitely be a top 15 striker and he would be on my list. The issue is, since 2020, Adesanya has lost to Jan Blachowicz. He's lost to Sean Strickland. So right off the bat, is Sean Strickland in my top 10? No. Is Jan Blachowicz in my top 10? No. Both of those guys are outside of my top 10. But I have them in my top 15. How is it so surprising that Adesanya, who lost to Sean Strickland and lost to Jan Blachowicz, not because he got knocked out, because he got outstruck and didn't have a deep enough tool bag, didn't have the adjustment ability to be able to win a victory against those guys in 5 rounds. 5 rounds he had against both of them. 25 minutes. He had 15 minutes on the feet with Jan and 25 minutes on the feet against Sean Strickland. Those guys aren't in my top 10. They're outside of my top 10. They just made my top 15. Heavier weight class fighters. Adesanya gets beat by both of them. So right off the bat, there's not a strong argument for, what do you mean he's not in the top 15? Like, there's an argument because he's outside of Jan Blachowicz and Sean Strickland, who are better than him. Now let's get into the performances against people like Marvin Vettori. Max Holloway against a guy of the caliber of Marvin Vettori sets a strike record. Peter Yan against the caliber of someone like Marvin Vettori finishes them and gets them out of there in the second round. Okay, Islam Makhachev against someone of the caliber of Marvin Vettori gets them out of there easily. Adesanya is going to a snooze fest decision with him. Made it look clear, but boring, not dominant. You cannot flex that win. Okay, his one impressive win out of the last, 8 fights that he has is against Alex Pereira, and he also lost to Pereira. So he's 1-1 with Pereira. Great win against him. I understand that. But the issue with Adesanya is that when it comes to striking, when you have so much mediocrity when you can't finish people, when you're going 5 rounds with someone and you're showing that, wait a second, you're not dominant, you're actually losing, and against this guy that you're beating, you're not making it look dominant, and that guy's trash, it's Marvin Vettori, Adesanya gets exposed when he doesn't KO people. There have been too many moments in his career where he's gotten exposed as having a more mediocre skill set than thought previously. And I can't look past that. I'm sorry. And to sit here and tell me that I'm delusional and biased, I actually think that people are biased towards the narrative that he's this striking god. He's not. Adesanya has fanboys, I understand that, but people are too biased towards Adesanya being a striking god. He's not. It's okay to put him outside of the top 15. I wouldn't have him in my top freaking 16, 17. I'd have him somewhere out there at the 35 spot. Yeah! Get out of here, son! Let's go! No, I'm joking, man. He's not somewhere floating out there in outer space, but he's somewhere around the top 20. He's somewhere around the top 20. Oh, yeah. No, but seriously. My favorite part of the video, though. Let's pull it up. I don't know if you guys saw this, but I was getting fucking hyped in the Volk scene, dude. We'll talk about Volk in a bit, but listen, I just wanted to say that Adesanya is a great striker just because he is not on my list for the top 15 MMA fighters on earth, because he's been on a bit of a downward trajectory recently in his career, doesn't mean that he's not a great striker. It's just that, let's not get angry just because he didn't make my top 15 when he gets outstruck by Jan Blachowicz and Sean Strickland and has mediocre performances against Cannonier and Marvin Vettori. All right. It's not a bias thing. It's just a brutal truth thing. And the brutal truth thing is that he's been overrated, and the narrative that he has to be in the top 10 is just silly. Okay? Like, I got Jan Blachowicz in there, never been outstruck outside of Alex Pereira, had a close fight with him. And people were like, Adesanya's the only one. Okay, the only one. What about Jan? That's all I got to say. You and Sketch should collab. I'm good. Thank you for the $2. Thank you for the 2. Servana, what has Usyk done to be a better striker? I made a mistake with Steve Usyk. I agree. Usyk hasn't done enough in his career. I think that he's a better striker than a bunch of people that we would have in our conversation, but I did make a mistake in putting him on the list. He hasn't done enough. I was just looking to put a flyweight on there. It wasn't even we got to have someone above this guy. It's just I wanted to put a flyweight on there, and I'm really impressed with his striking, but I don't think Usyk was a right choice. I think I would have had Dustin. I would have had Leon. Dustin Poirier, Leon Edwards would have been the other options. But you know what's funny to me? Not only were people complaining about me not putting Izzy on this list, which I think is just silly, but it's not surprising because that is the narrative that Izzy is one of the greatest strikers ever, even though he's not. Thank you for the $5, K. I hate Adesanya, but he made his UFC career with his striking. I agree with that. Current pound-for-pound striker, top 15. Maybe all-time striker, top 15. 100%. I don't think he's a top 15 pound-for-pound striker. I'm sorry. I think that he's probably top 25. I think he's most likely top 20, but I don't think he's top 15. I think that there are 15 people I could name that are better than him that have had less mediocre performances. It's like, this is the thing about, the Adesanya conversation. Who am I going to take out to put him in? That's really what people need to say. Because I understand that the thought of it, hey, come on, dude, you're so biased. This is disappointing, disingenuous. Who am I going to take out? That's the question. That's the real question. It's who would I take out? Aside from Usyk, we already talked about Usyk. I think Poirier should be an Usyk spot. I think that Leon Edwards should be an Usyk spot. I'm not putting Adesanya in front of Dustin Poirier. I'm sorry. I'll tell you 14 people you could remove. That's crazy. Dude. Okay. Yair. You think Yair? Yeah. You know what? That would be possible if Volkanovski and Max Holloway weren't shooting for dear life. That would be possible if Yair put us to sleep against Josh Emmett. Because people say Josh Emmett's not that good. Just like Conor Vettori. But, Emmett is still a featherweight that KOs people, finishes people, and is dangerous. So whatever, I'll maybe concede to the idea of Emmett sort of like the oaf, sort of like Marvin Vettori, but he's actually dangerous and he's better than Vettori. But either way, if Yair had a stinky performance against Emmett and just put people to sleep, and if Yair did get shut down tit for tat against Holloway and Volk, then you're right, but he didn't. He outstruck Holloway in moments. It was a very close, razor close fight. Holloway needed takedowns, and he was outpointing Volk. Nobody outpoints Volk. He was outpointing Volk. Volk needed to shoot takedowns early to slow him down, and then eventually Volk KO'd him, but Volk ain't winning a points battle against Yair. And Yair against guys like Emmett, Yair against guys that are maybe not the best in the division on the feet, is absolutely steamrolling them. Brian Ortega, decent striking. Decent. Not saying he's a great striker. I'm not saying he's a good striker. Decent. Yair isn't stinking it up on the feet in front of him. He's beating the fuck out of him. And he gets submitted. I don't care if you get submitted by Brian Ortega. We're talking striking alone. One-way traffic. I'm not taking Yair out. He's too dominant against guys that aren't the two best in the world and against the two best strikers on earth, Volkanovski and Max Holloway. He's making them shoot takedowns. If Sean Strickland's shooting takedowns, if Alex Pereira is shooting takedowns, if Jan Blachowicz is shooting a takedown early on, then I'll concede to that. Sorry. So right off the bat, I had the cookie right there. I had to get that one out of the way. Who else am I taking out? Because it's not Yair. Sorry, it's not Yair. Yair is not stinking it up in front of Marvin Vettori. Yair's not having a freaking lackluster 48-47 against, I don't know, who's like a Jared Cannonier at featherweight. Who are you going to give me, Dan Ige? Yair's beating the shit out of Dan Ige. Whitaker? Okay, there's an argument for Whitaker. But guess what? Recently, Whitaker's been a little bit better. Whitaker got beat by Dricus du Plessis. He got taken down in that fight, and he got stung on the chin. Okay, Adesanya got shut down tit for tat against Sean Strickland. Had 5 rounds to work and got shut down tit for tat. Whitaker lost to a well-rounded guy that mixed in takedowns and knocked him out with a big old nasty old punch. Okay, they're 1-1. Whitaker embarrassed Marvin Vettori. Whitaker had a fun performance against Jared Cannonier. More importantly, Whitaker styled and embarrassed Kelvin Gastelum. So when you look at their fights, what about Yoel Romero? Yoel beat Adesanya. Whitaker beat Yoel and took him to a draw the second time. So, I mean, even Robert Whitaker has a better resume striking. If you just combine all the opponents. Like, Adesanya's claim right now to being a top 15 is only against Alex Pereira. Everything else he's done recently has actually not been a great look for him. Name me one impressive performance that Adesanya's had since Paulo Costa outside of Alex Pereira. You can't. You literally can't. And yes, beating Alex Pereira is great. That's not enough. Knocking out a guy, is not enough. I'm sorry. Why you keep saying Izzy and Robert one-on-one? I'm not trolling. A lot of people think that was a robbery, and including myself. I promise you I'm not trolling. But I do at least concede to the idea of Adesanya having the better of the two because he knocked out Whitaker, and Whitaker had a very close fight with Adesanya. So I think that Whitaker, maybe is not better than Adesanya if you just look at those two fights. But I think you have to go to the common opponents, and Whitaker wins that battle there. What was the poll result of Adesanya top 15? It was 60% yes. So it's not as crazy as I thought. I think a lot of people see my logic. Adesanya is not in there just because he simply isn't better than the guys in here. But he's a good striker. He is a good striker. Like, a little bit. But he was still doing really well. And this is the thing about Volkanovski. And this is another point that I'm making about Adesanya. When he doesn't KO people, he gets exposed as being more mediocre than we think because he can't win a points battle. He can't win a kickboxing battle against Jan Blachowicz and Sean Strickland. When he's in a kickboxing battle against someone that's supposedly far below his level, he can't dog walk them. Volkanovski is never losing a points battle.